Good evening, and welcome back to History for Dreamers. Tonight we're traveling nearly 2,000 years into the past, to a city so remarkably preserved that walking through its streets today feels like stepping into a paused moment in time. Most people know Pompeii for the terrible day that brought its story to an abrupt end, but tonight is not about that day. Instead, we're going to spend our time exploring something far quieter, and perhaps even more fascinating. We're going to experience what it was like to live through one perfectly ordinary day in one of the Roman Empire's most prosperous cities. Long before ash buried its streets beneath layers of volcanic stone, long before Mount Vesuvius became one of history's most famous volcanoes, Pompeii was simply home. It was a place where merchants opened their shops before sunrise, where bakers filled narrow streets with the comforting smell of fresh bread, where children chased one another through courtyards, where fountains splashed endlessly beneath the warm Italian sun, where gardeners tended roses, olive trees, and fragrant herbs, where families gathered each evening beneath the gentle glow of oil lamps before settling into bed, expecting tomorrow to be much like today. And tonight, that is the Pompeii we will visit. Not the city remembered for its final hours, but the city that lived. As always, before we begin our journey, I'd like to invite you to take a moment to become comfortable. Perhaps you're already tucked beneath a warm blanket. Maybe you're listening while the room slowly grows quiet around you. However you found your way here tonight, thank you for allowing me to accompany you. If you enjoy peaceful journeys through history like this one, I'd love to invite you to subscribe. Each week, we travel somewhere new, discovering what everyday life was truly like for ordinary people across the ancient and medieval world. Now, allow your breathing to slow, feel your shoulders relax, let the worries of today drift gently away. Tonight, there are no deadlines, no emails, no alarms, only ancient streets waiting to be explored. Imagine the warmth of southern Italy, the scent of freshly baked bread carried on the morning breeze, the sound of sandals tapping softly across smooth volcanic stone, the distant calls of market traders preparing for another busy day. Somewhere nearby, water trickles steadily from a public fountain that has flowed for generations. Above the rooftops rises the broad green slopes of Mount Vesuvius. To the people of Pompeii, it is simply another part of the landscape, a familiar mountain watching peacefully over the fertile countryside. No one gives it much thought anymore. Children have grown up playing beneath its shadow. Farmers cultivate rich vineyards along its slopes. Travelers admire its quiet beauty as they approach the city from the Bay of Naples. Nothing about the mountain suggests that history is quietly waiting, because history rarely announces itself. Most extraordinary days begin exactly like ordinary ones, and that is where our story begins. You are not a wealthy senator, nor a famous general. You are not an emperor, nor a gladiator. Instead, you are simply one among the nearly 20,000 people who call Pompeii home. You know your neighbors. You recognize the familiar shopkeepers who greet you each morning. You have favorite streets, favorite fountains, favorite corners of the marketplace. Life has its routines, its comforts, its familiar rhythms. Tomorrow promises another ordinary day, or so everyone believes. Outside, the last stars still shine above tiled rooftops. The streets remain almost silent. Most homes are still dark. Only a handful of bakeries have begun lighting their ovens. A rooster crows somewhere beyond the city walls. The air carries the cool freshness that comes just before dawn. Inside your modest Roman home, yesterday's fire has faded into glowing embers. The room is quiet, peaceful. The city is asleep. And then, slowly, you open your eyes. The cool morning air reaches you before your thoughts do. It slips quietly through the narrow opening of the wooden shutters, carrying with it the faint scent of damp stone and distant olive groves. The warmth beneath your wool blanket has made the night comfortable enough, but now the chill gently encourages you to leave sleep behind. For a few peaceful moments, you remain perfectly still. The world beyond your room has not yet begun its familiar bustle. There are no merchants calling across the streets, no wagons rattling over the stone roads, no laughter drifting from the public fountains. Pompeii still belongs to the silence that exists only between night and morning. You blink slowly, allowing your eyes to adjust to the dim light. The room around you is modest but carefully arranged. Thick plaster walls, painted long ago in shades of deep red and soft yellow, surround the small sleeping chamber. Though the colors have faded over the years, they still brighten the room whenever sunlight reaches them. A simple wooden chest sits against one wall, holding your spare tunic, a heavier wool cloak for cooler evenings, and a few carefully folded linens. Beside it rests a small oil lamp, now dark after burning through much of the night. The faint smell of olive oil lingers in the air. Your bed is little more than a sturdy wooden frame supporting tightly woven ropes beneath a wool-filled mattress. It is not luxurious by the standards of Rome's wealthiest citizens, yet compared with many throughout the empire, it is comfortable enough. A thick wool blanket lies folded near your feet, and the pillow beneath your head is stuffed with feathers gathered over many seasons. As you sit upright, the wooden frame creaks softly beneath your weight. Somewhere beyond the courtyard wall, a rooster announces the coming dawn with confident determination. Another quickly answers, then another. Before long, the quiet countryside surrounding Pompeii joins together in a scattered chorus that has greeted mornings here for generations. You smile faintly. Some things never seem to change. Pulling the blanket around your shoulders for a final moment of warmth, you swing your feet onto the cool mosaic floor. The tiny stone tiles beneath your sandals feel smooth from years of careful sweeping and countless footsteps. You stand slowly, stretching away the stiffness that sleep has left behind. Your home is neither grand nor poor. Like many families in Pompeii, you belong somewhere comfortably between the city's wealthy merchants and its laborers. Your house surrounds a modest central atrium, an open-roofed courtyard that allows fresh air, sunlight, and rainwater to enter. In the center rests a shallow stone basin where rain collects before flowing into an underground cistern. Even in darkness, you know every corner of this house. You could walk it with your eyes closed. Stepping quietly into the atrium, you pause beneath the opening in the roof. Above you, the final stars still shimmer faintly against a sky slowly surrendering to morning. A pale ribbon of silver stretches across the eastern horizon, where the sun will soon appear beyond the Bay of Naples. The air feels wonderfully fresh. Italy's summers can become intensely warm by midday, but these early hours remain pleasantly cool. Somewhere nearby, water drips steadily into the stone basin. Plink, plink, plink. It is a sound so familiar that you scarcely notice it anymore. Near the household shrine, known as the Lararium, you stop for a brief moment. Nearly every Roman home contains one. Set into a painted niche within the wall stand small figures representing the household gods, the Lares and Penates, protectors believed to watch over the family, the home, and its daily fortunes. A tiny clay bowl rests before them, where offerings of wine, bread, flowers, or fragrant incense are placed during festivals or important occasions. This morning, you simply bow your head for a quiet moment. No elaborate ceremony, only a simple greeting to begin another ordinary day. Outside, the first bakeries have already begun their work. Though you cannot yet see them, the breeze carries the unmistakable scent of wood smoke mingled with rising bread dough. The city's ovens must be lit long before sunrise, if fresh loaves are to fill the market stalls by breakfast. Pompeii loves its bread, so much so that nearly every neighborhood has its own bakery, each with heavy millstones turned by donkeys and great brick ovens glowing through the darkness. The smell is impossible to mistake. It is warm, comforting, almost impossible to resist. Moving toward the kitchen, you kneel beside yesterday's hearth. The fire has nearly gone out. Only a handful of glowing embers remain beneath a blanket of soft gray ash. With practiced hands, you gather a few small pieces of dry olive wood and carefully arrange them above the remaining coals. A gentle breath, another. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, a tiny orange flame appears. It dances uncertainly before finding strength among the kindling. Soon the fire crackles quietly, filling the room with welcome warmth. There is something deeply satisfying about coaxing yesterday's fire back to life instead of beginning anew. It is a small daily ritual repeated in homes across Pompeii, As the flames grow brighter, shadows retreat into the corners of the room. The painted walls begin to glow softly. Bronze cooking pots hanging from wooden hooks catch the flickering light, reflecting tiny flashes of gold. You warm your hands near the fire for a moment before dressing. A fresh linen tunic slips easily over your shoulders. The fabric feels cool at first, but quickly warms against your skin. Around your waist, a simple leather belt holds the loose folds comfortably in place. Your sandals, well made but clearly worn from many seasons of walking the city's stone streets, wait beside the doorway, exactly where you left them the night before. Outside, Pompeii is beginning to stir. A distant door opens. Somewhere, a donkey snorts impatiently before the soft clatter of harnesses follows. Farther away, the dog barks once, then settles again. The city is waking one sound at a time. Before stepping outside, you unlatch the wooden front door. Its iron hinges groan gently. Cool morning air flows into the house, carrying with it the rich scent of vineyards beyond the city walls and the faint salt of the nearby sea. The street before you lies mostly empty. Large stepping stones cross the roadway, allowing pedestrians to stay above the water that sometimes gathers after heavy rains or when the public fountains overflow. Deep grooves carved by countless wagon wheels run between them, silent reminders of decades of constant movement through the city. Oil lamps still flicker outside a few buildings. Their flames struggle against the growing light. Across the rooftops, the first rays of sunrise gently touch the upper slopes of Mount Vesuvius. The mountain appears peaceful, almost beautiful. Its green hills are covered with vineyards and orchards, producing grapes and olives that help make this region one of the most prosperous in all of Italy. To you, it is simply part of the landscape, a familiar neighbor that has stood watch over Pompeii for as long as anyone can remember. You pause for a moment, taking in the quiet beauty of the scene. The streets, the cool air, the smell of fresh bread, the distant crowing of roosters, the mountain glowing softly in the morning light. It feels like the beginning of another perfectly ordinary day. And with the city finally awakening around you, it is time to join the steady flow of life that soon will fill every street, every market, and every corner of Pompeii. The city greets the morning, one sound at a time. At first, it is almost too quiet to notice. A single wooden door opens somewhere farther down the street, followed by the soft scrape of a broom sweeping yesterday's dust from a threshold. A donkey stamps its hoof against the stone, impatient for the day's work to begin. Somewhere beyond the rooftops, another rooster calls, answered by several more until the chorus echoes across the neighborhoods of Pompeii. You step onto the smooth volcanic paving stones outside your home and gently pull the wooden door closed behind you. Already the eastern sky has shifted from silver to pale gold. The sunlight has not yet reached the narrow streets themselves, but the upper walls of nearby houses glow softly, where the first rays catch painted plaster and red clay roof tiles. The cool air still lingers, carrying with it the pleasant scent of damp stone after the night's dew. You begin walking at an unhurried pace. The streets of Pompeii are unlike those of many Roman cities. Though narrow, they are thoughtfully planned. Raised sidewalks run along either side, protecting pedestrians from the water and refuse that sometimes collect in the center of the road. Large stepping stones span the street at intervals, allowing people to cross without wetting their sandals, while still leaving enough space for wagon wheels to pass between them. You step easily from one stone to the next. The grooves worn into the paving tell their own quiet story. Thousands of carts have rolled this way. Thousands of feet have crossed these streets before yours. Every smooth edge has been shaped by generations of ordinary lives. A woman carrying an empty clay amphora smiles politely as she passes. She is heading toward one of the public fountains before the morning crowds arrive. Fresh water flows continuously through Pompeii, thanks to an impressive network of aqueducts that carry water from distant mountain springs. Public fountains stand throughout the city, ensuring that nearly every resident has access to clean water only a short walk from home. As you continue, the gentle sound of flowing water becomes louder. Soon you reach one of the familiar fountains, carved from stone blackened slightly by years of constant moisture. Crystal clear water pours steadily from the mouth of a bronze spout shaped like a lion's head, splashing rhythmically into the basin below. Several neighbors have already gathered. One fills a bucket, another rinses vegetables. Two older men exchange quiet conversation while waiting their turn. No one seems in a hurry. The day is only just beginning. You pause for a moment, cupping your hands beneath the cool stream. The water is refreshing, cold enough to wake you completely. After drinking, you splash a little across your face. Nearby, an elderly woman chuckles as a young boy struggles to lift a bucket nearly as large as himself. His determined expression draws smiles from everyone watching. Eventually, his mother takes the handle, thanking the neighbors with a small nod before leading him home.
These little moments are everywhere in Pompeii.
Most will never be written into history, yet they are the moments that truly make a city feel alive. Leaving the fountain behind, you continue toward one of the busier streets. The smell reaches you long before the bakery comes into view. Fresh bread, warm flour, wood smoke. The comforting aroma seems to wrap itself around the entire neighborhood. One of the city's bakers is already hard at work. The front of the bakery stands open to the street, inviting passers-by to admire rows of round loaves cooling on wooden shelves. Their tops are neatly scored into equal wedges before baking, making them easy to divide among family members. Inside, a pair of donkeys patiently walk in slow circles, turning enormous volcanic millstones. With each steady step, grain is crushed into fine flour. The rhythm is almost hypnotic. Round and round, stone against stone, never hurried, never stopping for long. A baker, his face lightly dusted with flour, removes another batch of loaves from the glowing brick oven using a long wooden paddle. Heat pours from the oven door, briefly warming the cool morning air. He notices you watching. With a cheerful smile, he lifts one fresh loaf. Steam curls gently from its crust. The scent is irresistible. You purchase a warm loaf while it's still almost too hot to hold comfortably. Its crust crackles softly beneath your fingers. There may be no finer smell in all of Pompeii than bread fresh from the oven at sunrise. You tear away a small piece. The inside is soft, warm, simple, perfect. As you continue walking, more shops begin opening their shutters. A bronze worker arranges polished lamps outside his workshop. Across the street, a potter carefully places rows of freshly fired bowls where customers can admire them. A cloth merchant shakes colorful lengths of dyed fabric before hanging them beneath a wooden awning. Deep reds, golden yellows, soft blues, colors bright enough to rival the flowers growing in nearby gardens. The city seems to stretch awake like a person rising slowly from sleep. Nothing feels rushed. Each trade begins according to its own familiar rhythm. Farther ahead, a blacksmith has already lit his forge. Though the fire burns brightly, he has not yet begun striking metal. Instead, he carefully sorts tools laid across a sturdy workbench. Hammer, tongs, chisels, each returning to exactly the place where his hands expect to find them. Organization, like routine, saves time. Nearby, a mule pulling a small cart loaded with baskets of figs pauses while its owner exchanges greetings with another merchant. Conversations drift through the air. Some discuss yesterday's sales. Others wonder whether this year's grape harvest will be plentiful. A fisherman proudly claims the sea has been especially generous this week. Whether or not his story grows a little with each telling hardly matters. Stories, like fresh bread, are part of every morning. As you walk farther into the heart of the city, the streets gradually become livelier. Children chase one another across an open courtyard before a patient grandmother reminds them not to run too fast. A pair of dogs nap lazily beside a doorway, barely lifting their heads as people pass. An apprentice carefully sweeps dust from the entrance of his master's shop, pausing occasionally to watch the growing crowds with quiet curiosity. The sunlight finally reaches the street where you stand. Warm golden light spills between the buildings, transforming the pale stone beneath your feet into shades of honey and amber. Painted walls that seemed dull only moments ago suddenly burst with color. Pompeii has fully awakened. Above the rooftops, Mount Vesuvius watches over it all. The mountain rises peacefully against the brightening sky, its gentle slopes covered in vineyards, orchards, and fertile farmland. Farmers have long praised the richness of its volcanic soil, producing grapes that become excellent wine, and olives that fill countless clay jars throughout the region. To everyone around you, the mountain is a symbol of abundance. Children point toward it without fear. Merchants hardly glance at it. It has always been there, always quiet, always familiar. You take another bite of the still warm bread as the city settles into the comfortable rhythm of another ordinary morning. Ahead, the broad streets leading toward Pompeii's bustling forum begin to fill with citizens from every corner of the city. Merchants, craftsmen, servants, travelers, and families all move in the same direction. Whatever business the day may hold, much of it will begin there. With the taste of fresh bread lingering pleasantly and the morning sun now warming your shoulders, you join the gentle flow of people making their way toward the heart of Pompeii. The streets naturally guide you toward the center of the city. You do not need signs to find your way. Like everyone who has lived in Pompeii for years, your feet seem to know the route almost without thinking. The roads gradually widen, the number of people steadily increases, and the sounds of the city gently blend into a lively but comforting rhythm. Ahead, sunlight spills into a broad, open space. You have arrived at the Forum. This is the beating heart of Pompeii. Nearly every important part of daily life passes through here sooner or later. Business is conducted beneath its colonnades. News travels faster than the swiftest messenger. Friends meet unexpectedly while running ordinary errands. Officials settle disputes. Priests prepare ceremonies. Merchants display goods brought from every corner of the Roman world. Yet, despite its importance, the Forum never feels hurried. There is movement everywhere, but it is an organized kind of movement, shaped by routines that have repeated themselves day after day for generations. You slow your pace as you step onto the broad stone pavement. The smooth slabs beneath your sandals have been polished by countless footsteps. Thousands of people cross this square every day, each carrying their own concerns, hopes, and plans. Yet together they create something much larger than themselves, a city quietly going about its life. Tall columns surround much of the square. Their pale stone catches the morning sunlight, casting long shadows that stretch across the open space like carefully drawn lines. Pigeons flutter from one column to another, occasionally descending to peck at stray crumbs left behind by early visitors. The air feels warmer here. The sun has climbed high enough to reach nearly every corner of the square, though a pleasant breeze still drifts inland from the Bay of Naples. You pause for a moment to simply watch. One of the great pleasures of a place like this is that there is never just one thing to see. Every direction offers another small story. To your left, two elderly men sit beneath a shaded portico, absorbed in conversation. One gestures enthusiastically with his hands, while the other nods thoughtfully, occasionally smiling at a familiar memory. Their discussion may concern politics, business, or perhaps nothing particularly important at all. Nearby, a young apprentice carefully balances a stack of wax tablets against his chest as he hurries after his employer, trying very hard not to drop any of them. A small group of children weave between the adults, laughing as they invent games only they fully understand. Their parents occasionally call after them, though not with much concern. The Forum has always been part of their world. You continue walking. Along one side of the square stand rows of shops, each already welcoming its first customers. A jeweler arranges delicate gold earrings upon a dark cloth, so their polished surfaces sparkle in the sunlight. Next door, a merchant carefully unfolds brightly colored fabrics imported from distant provinces of the empire. Some have traveled across the Mediterranean by ship. Others have crossed mountains and deserts by caravan before finally arriving here in Pompeii. Running your hand gently across one length of cloth, you feel how remarkably soft it is. Fine linen from Egypt, wool from northern Italy, silk, perhaps, that began its incredible journey far beyond Rome's eastern borders. Every object here has its own story. Every item has traveled farther than most people ever will. Across the square, the smell of herbs catches your attention. A woman tends a stall overflowing with fragrant bundles tied neatly with twine. Fresh rosemary, mint, thyme, bay leaves. Their scents mingle pleasantly in the warming air. She smiles warmly as customers stop to examine her collection, happily explaining which herbs best season fish, preserve meat, or soothe an aching stomach. Knowledge like hers has been passed from one generation to the next. No books are needed, only memory. Nearby, another merchant displays polished bronze mirrors that reflect tiny fragments of the bustling square. Each catches a different angle: a child laughing, a passing dog, a fluttering pigeon, a distant temple. The reflections shimmer slightly as people move, creating little windows into dozens of ordinary moments happening all at once. You wander without any particular destination. There is no urgency today. Perhaps you have a few small errands to complete later, but mornings like this are too enjoyable to rush. One advantage of living in Pompeii is that nearly everything you need can be found within walking distance. The city itself is compact, friendly, comfortably familiar. Ahead, a money changer sits behind a sturdy wooden table. Small scales rest beside carefully arranged stacks of Roman coins, bronze, silver, the occasional glimmer of gold. Customers approach one by one, exchanging currency from different regions of the empire, before continuing on their journeys. The Roman world is vast. Its roads connect distant provinces stretching from Britain to Egypt, from Hispania to Syria. Pompeii may seem like a peaceful coastal town, but every day, its marketplace reminds you that your city belongs to something much larger. A pair of travelers speaking with unfamiliar accents examine a painted map while discussing directions toward Naples. One gestures toward the harbor, the other nods. Their sandals are dusty from many days of walking, their cloaks faded by countless miles beneath the Mediterranean sun. You wonder briefly where their journey began, perhaps somewhere far beyond anything you will ever see. Then your attention shifts again. The Forum has a gentle way of offering new sights before your curiosity settles for too long. Near the center of the square, a public speaker has gathered a modest crowd. He is not shouting. Instead, he speaks with calm confidence, discussing news recently brought from Rome. Some listeners appear deeply interested. Others simply pause for a few moments before continuing on their way. News travels differently here. There are no printed newspapers, no hurried messages arriving every hour. Instead, information moves from person to person, conversation by conversation, morning by morning. You find something comforting in that slower pace. Life allows time to absorb each new piece of information before the next one arrives. As you continue beneath another shaded colonnade, your eyes drift upward. The sky above Pompeii is brilliantly clear. Only a few thin white clouds float lazily across the blue. Beyond the rooftops, Mount Vesuvius rises peacefully above the countryside. From here, the mountain seems almost protective. Its broad slopes frame the landscape beautifully. No smoke, no fire, no sign of danger. Only vineyards climbing its fertile hillsides, where generations of farmers have grown grapes that produce some of the region's finest wines. Nearby, a merchant jokes that the mountain has always been generous to those willing to work its soil. Several customers laugh in agreement. No one argues. Why would they? For centuries, Vesuvius has been little more than a quiet landmark overlooking a prosperous land. You smile as you continue walking. The warmth of the morning sun, the steady murmur of conversations, the fragrance of herbs and fresh bread, and the familiar faces all blend into something deeply reassuring. This is not the Pompeii remembered in history books. This is the Pompeii its people knew. A city full of routines, friendships, work, laughter, simple pleasures. As the morning grows brighter, another thought comes to mind. The warmth of the sun makes today feel like the perfect day to visit one of the city's greatest comforts, the public baths. There, warm water, polished marble, and quiet conversation await, offering a peaceful pause before the afternoon begins. With that pleasant thought, you leave the Forum behind and make your way toward one of Pompeii's most beloved gathering places. Leaving the lively Forum behind, you follow a quieter street lined with elegant homes and small workshops. The bustle of merchants and customers gradually fades into the background. Their conversations become softer with every step until they blend with the gentle sounds of the city itself. Somewhere nearby, a fountain trickles steadily. A pair of swallows dart overhead, chasing insects through the bright morning air before disappearing above the terracotta rooftops. The sun has climbed comfortably into the sky now. Its warmth settles pleasantly across your shoulders, promising another beautiful day in Campania. Although there are still many hours before midday, you have no pressing reason to hurry. Like many citizens of Pompeii, you have learned that life is best enjoyed when its ordinary moments are given the time they deserve. Ahead, the entrance to the public baths comes into view. The building is handsome without being extravagant, built from pale stone that glows warmly beneath the morning sun. A modest crowd drifts in and out of its wide doorway. Some visitors greet one another with familiar smiles, while others simply nod politely before disappearing inside. The baths are much more than a place to wash. They are where neighbors meet, where friends catch up after several days apart, where business agreements are discussed, where travelers hear the latest stories, and where tired muscles find welcome relief after long hours of work. Stepping through the entrance, you immediately notice the change in temperature. The air inside feels softer, warmer. The cool freshness of the streets gives way to a gentle embrace of heated stone and rising steam. The sounds change as well. Outside, carts and footsteps echoed across hard pavement. Here, voices become quieter, more relaxed. Water splashes gently into marble basins. Sandals scrape softly across smooth floors. Occasionally, laughter rises from another room before fading once again into the comforting murmur of conversation. Sunlight filters through high openings near the ceiling, filling the halls with broad shafts of golden light. Tiny droplets of moisture drift lazily through those beams, sparkling for a moment before disappearing. The building seems almost to breathe. You make your way toward the Atrium, the changing room. Stone benches line the walls, already occupied by a handful of early visitors removing their outer garments. Wooden shelves hold neatly folded tunics and sandals, while attendants quietly help organize belongings. There is no rush here. Everyone moves at an easy pace. A man beside you carefully folds his cloak rather than simply dropping it onto the bench. Another adjusts the leather strap of his sandal before placing it neatly beneath his clothes. Even these small actions seem strangely peaceful. You place your own belongings beside the others and offer a friendly greeting to an older gentleman who appears to recognize you. He smiles warmly. "Another beautiful morning," he says. You agree. Neither of you feels the need to say much more. Sometimes shared silence is every bit as pleasant as conversation. Leaving the changing room, you step into the tepidarium. Warm air surrounds you immediately. Not hot, not cool. Just comfortably warm. The room has been carefully designed to prepare the body for greater heat ahead. Its walls are decorated with painted panels in deep reds and rich earth tones, while polished marble columns support the gently curved ceiling overhead. The floor beneath your feet feels pleasantly warm. Beneath it, hidden from view, servants maintain a remarkable system called the hypocaust. Far below the stone floor, furnaces burn steadily, sending warm air through hollow spaces beneath the building. The heat rises gently through the floors and walls, creating an even warmth throughout the baths. Most visitors give little thought to how it works. They simply enjoy its comfort. You settle onto a smooth marble bench. Closing your eyes for a moment, you let the warmth slowly ease away every trace of the morning's coolness. Your shoulders relax. Your breathing slows. Around you, quiet conversations drift through the room like soft music. Two merchants discuss the arrival of a cargo ship from Alexandria. Nearby, an elderly man tells a familiar story about his grandson's first visit to the baths. His friends laugh politely, though, judging by their expressions, they have likely heard the tale several times before. No one seems to mind. Some stories become traditions. Eventually, you continue into the caldarium. As the heavy wooden door opens, a wave of heat greets you. Steam rises gently through the room. Bronze basins shimmer beneath the soft light. The scent of olive oil mingles with warm stone, creating an atmosphere that feels both clean and comforting. Here, the warmth settles deep into your muscles. You lower yourself carefully beside a large pool of heated water. Its surface is perfectly still, except for gentle ripples created by nearby bathers. As your hands touch the water, you pause. It is wonderfully warm, not scalding, simply inviting. Slowly, you step into the pool. The warmth surrounds you almost instantly. Every lingering stiffness disappears. The water supports your body effortlessly, allowing you to float for a quiet moment, while sunlight dances across the surface in shifting patterns of gold. You cannot help but wonder how remarkable this place would seem to travelers from distant lands, where such comforts are unknown. For the people of Pompeii, however, the baths are simply part of life, as ordinary as visiting the market or baking bread. A young attendant moves quietly through the room, carrying small clay bottles filled with fragrant olive oil. Visitors massage the oil gently into their skin before using a curved bronze tool called a strigil to scrape away dust, perspiration, and old oil. The process is surprisingly gentle. It leaves the skin clean without the need for soap, which remains uncommon throughout much of the Roman world. Nearby, one man carefully demonstrates the proper technique to his teenage son, who laughs as he awkwardly imitates the movement. His father smiles patiently. Every generation learns from the one before it. The warmth encourages conversation to slow even further. Long pauses become comfortable. Some bathers simply sit quietly, listening to the gentle echoes of dripping water. Others close their eyes entirely. There is no expectation to speak, only to enjoy the moment. Eventually, feeling wonderfully refreshed, you leave the heated room and wander into the open courtyard beyond. A small garden lies at its center. Neatly trimmed shrubs surround a shallow pool where sunlight reflects against white marble columns. Birds hop confidently among the flowering plants, seemingly unbothered by the quiet visitors resting nearby. You find a shaded bench beneath a young cypress tree. The breeze feels cool against your skin after the warmth of the baths. Not cold, simply refreshing. Above the garden wall, Mount Vesuvius rises peacefully against the brilliant blue sky. Its slopes are green with vineyards. Farmers are already hard at work among the vines, tending grapes that will one day become wine, shared at family tables throughout the city. A mountain appears timeless, gentle, almost comforting. Like everyone else in Pompeii, you hardly spare it a second thought. Instead, your attention returns to the little pleasures of the morning. The quiet garden, the scent of rosemary carried on the breeze, the soft splash of water, the warmth still lingering in your muscles. You sit there for several peaceful moments, enjoying the simple satisfaction that comes from doing absolutely nothing at all. Eventually, the gentle rumble of your stomach reminds you that the morning has passed more quickly than you realized. The baths have refreshed both body and mind. Now, with the sun climbing higher above the rooftops, it is time to wander homeward once more, where the familiar aromas of lunch are beginning to drift through the streets of Pompeii. The warmth of the baths lingers pleasantly as you step back into the streets of Pompeii. The sun has climbed high enough that the coolness of the morning has completely disappeared. Light pours into every alley, reflecting from white plaster walls and bright stone pavements. The shadows have grown shorter now, gathering beneath awnings and beneath the broad leaves of fig trees that peek over garden walls. The city has reached its busiest hours. Merchants continue calling gently to passing customers, though there is no sense of urgency in their voices. A pair of laborers carefully guide a mule, pulling a cart loaded with amphorae filled with olive oil. Nearby, children chase one another through a side street until a patient mother reminds them not to stray too far from home. Life moves steadily forward. Not quickly, not slowly, simply at the comfortable pace that Pompeii has known for generations. You begin making your way back toward your neighborhood. The streets have become familiar companions over the years. Every corner holds a memory. Every doorway belongs to someone you recognize. A baker nods as you pass. A neighbor raises a hand in greeting while trimming a climbing vine that stretches across his courtyard wall. You return the smile. There is comfort in belonging to a place where faces rarely remain strangers for long. As you approach your home, the scent of herbs drifts gently through the warm air. Someone nearby is preparing lunch. Fresh rosemary, crushed garlic, a hint of thyme. The fragrances mingle together so naturally that it is difficult to tell which house they come from, perhaps from several at once. Cooking aromas drift easily between neighboring homes, carried by the same breeze that cools the narrow streets. You unlatch your wooden door and step inside. Immediately, the sounds of the city soften. The thick plaster walls seem to hold back much of the bustle outside, replacing it with the peaceful sounds of your own household. Water trickles steadily into the shallow basin beneath the opening in the atrium roof. Somewhere deeper in the house, pottery clinks softly against a wooden table. Sunlight pours through the rectangular opening above the atrium, forming a bright square upon the mosaic floor. Dust motes drift lazily through the beam of light, rising and falling so slowly they seem almost suspended in time. You pause for a moment beneath the open roof. It is one of your favorite places in the house. The Romans designed homes like this with remarkable care. The atrium is more than simply an entrance. It is the heart of the home. Rainwater falls through the opening above into the shallow pool below, where it is collected before flowing into an underground cistern. On rainy days, the gentle sound of falling water fills the entire house. Only the quiet splash from the fountain breaks the silence. A small breeze enters through the roof opening, carrying with it the scent of flowering vines growing along the rear garden wall. The house feels wonderfully cool, despite the strengthening sun outside. You set the remaining portion of your morning bread upon a wooden table. Soon, lunch begins to take shape. Nothing extravagant. Roman meals for ordinary families are often simple, relying on fresh ingredients rather than elaborate preparation. A small bowl of olives, goat cheese, firm yet creamy, slices of ripe figs, gathered only yesterday, fresh bread, still carrying the faint warmth of the bakery oven, a drizzle of fragrant olive oil, perhaps a little honey for sweetness, a handful of walnuts. The meal is modest, yet satisfying. A clay jug stands nearby, filled with watered wine. Romans rarely drink wine undiluted. Mixing it with water is considered both practical and civilized, making it suitable even during the middle of the day. You pour a small cup. The cool liquid is refreshing after the warmth of the baths. Before eating, you take another quiet glance toward the household shrine. The small painted figures of the Lares watch silently from their place within the wall. Many families offer a brief word of thanks before sharing a meal. Today is no different. It is not a grand ceremony, only a familiar habit, one passed from parents to children over countless generations. You settle onto a wooden stool beside the table. The first bite of fresh bread crackles softly beneath your fingers. Its crust remains pleasantly firm, while the inside is still tender from the morning's baking. A little olive oil soaks into the warm crumb. Simple, honest, delicious. You understand why bread forms the foundation of nearly every Roman meal. Outside, faint sounds continue drifting into the house. A passing cart, distant voices, the rhythmic tapping of a carpenter's hammer somewhere farther down the street. Unlike the hurried cities of the modern world, Pompeii seems to breathe between moments of activity. No one appears obsessed with filling every second. There is always time for conversation, time for meals, time for quiet reflection. The midday hours encourage people to slow down. As you eat, your eyes wander across the painted walls surrounding the atrium. Bright reds, deep blacks, golden borders. Small scenes from mythology carefully painted years ago by skilled craftsmen. Some depict gardens more beautiful than any real garden could ever be. Others show birds perched among flowering branches that bloom eternally upon plaster instead of soil. The paintings make the rooms feel larger, more open, almost connected to the natural world beyond the walls. After finishing your meal, you carry your cup into the rear garden. Though modest in size, it is one of the loveliest parts of the house. Stone pathways wind gently between carefully tended plants. Rose bushes bloom beside fragrant lavender. Small herbs grow neatly in clay pots. A young olive tree stretches its silvery leaves toward the afternoon sun. Near the far wall stands a marble bench, cooled by the shade of a grapevine climbing overhead. You take a seat. The breeze rustles the leaves so softly that they seem to whisper among themselves. Bees drift lazily from flower to flower, entirely absorbed in their work. A small lizard darts across a warm stone before disappearing beneath a clay planter. Everything feels peaceful. Everything feels wonderfully ordinary. From here, you can just glimpse the upper slopes of Mount Vesuvius beyond the rooftops. Its familiar outline rises against the cloudless sky. Farmers continue working among its vineyards. The fertile volcanic soil has rewarded generations with abundant harvests. Many of the grapes that will eventually become wine, shared across Pompeii, begin their lives upon those very slopes. The mountain has given far more than it has ever taken. At least, that is what everyone believes. A faint breeze carries the distant sound of laughter from another garden. Someone is telling a story. Others respond with warm amusement. For a few moments, you simply sit and listen. There is no need to hurry back into the streets. The afternoon still stretches comfortably ahead. Perhaps a walk beyond the city walls would be pleasant. The vineyards are beautiful this time of year. The orchards heavy with fruit. The countryside surrounding Pompeii has always been as much a part of daily life as the city itself. With the gentle warmth of the sun upon your shoulders and the lingering taste of fresh bread still on your tongue, you rise from the marble bench and make your way toward the gate, ready to spend the afternoon wandering through the fertile landscape that has made this corner of Italy so prosperous for centuries. The afternoon sun hangs comfortably above Pompeii as you make your way toward one of the city's western gates. Behind you, the familiar sounds of daily life continue without interruption. The forum remains busy with merchants and customers. Bakers prepare another round of loaves for the evening meal. The steady ringing of a blacksmith's hammer echoes faintly through the streets. But with every step toward the city wall, those sounds become softer. Soon they are replaced by something even gentler. The rustling of leaves, the distant singing of birds, the steady chorus of insects hidden among tall grasses. Passing beneath the great stone arch of the city gate, you leave Pompeii behind, not entirely, but just enough to appreciate the peaceful countryside that surrounds it. The transition feels almost magical. One moment you are surrounded by white plaster walls and paved streets. The next, the landscape opens wide before you. Rolling vineyards stretch across the gentle hills. Olive groves shimmer beneath the bright Mediterranean sun. Small farms dot the countryside, their red-tiled roofs nestled among orchards heavy with figs, pears, and pomegranates. The air itself seems different here. It smells of warm earth, wild herbs, fresh grass, and somewhere nearby, lavender carried on the breeze. You pause for a moment to breathe deeply. The countryside has its own rhythm. Unlike the city, nothing here seems to announce itself. There are no conversations drifting from neighboring homes, no carts rumbling across stone streets, only nature moving quietly through another beautiful afternoon. A narrow dirt path winds between rows of grapevines. Their leaves cast delicate shadows across the ground, dancing gently whenever the breeze stirs them. Clusters of green grapes hang beneath the broad leaves, still ripening beneath the summer sun. In a few weeks, the harvest will begin. Families from Pompeii and the surrounding villas will gather among these vines, carefully cutting each heavy cluster before loading them into woven baskets. Eventually, those grapes will become the wines for which Campania is famous throughout the Roman world. You continue walking. The path is soft beneath your sandals after the hard volcanic stones of the city streets. It feels pleasant beneath your feet, almost springy. Along one edge of the vineyard, rows of bright red poppies sway lazily beside delicate white daisies. Butterflies drift from flower to flower without any apparent destination. A honeybee disappears into the heart of a blossom before emerging moments later, dusted with golden pollen. Everything moves slowly. Nothing seems hurried. A farmer looks up from his work as you approach. His face is weathered by years beneath the Italian sun, yet his smile is warm. He raises a hand in greeting before returning to the vines. You know one another well enough that silence feels perfectly comfortable. Nearby, two younger workers carefully inspect the vines. They gently lift the leaves, checking for insects or signs of disease that might threaten the coming harvest. One points toward a particularly healthy cluster of grapes, clearly pleased with its progress. The other nods with quiet satisfaction. Their work is patient, methodical. The vineyards, the orchards, the olive groves, the peaceful farms, the quiet mountains standing watch over them all. It is easy to understand why so many people consider this one of the most beautiful places in the Roman world. As the afternoon begins to fade into the golden light of early evening, you turn back toward Pompeii, where the city's temples are beginning to glow in the lowering sun, inviting you to pause for a moment of quiet reflection before the day draws to a close. The road back toward Pompeii feels different in the afternoon light. When you left the city earlier, the streets were waking, filled with the excitement of a new day. Now, the pace has softened. The busiest hours have passed, and a quieter rhythm has settled over the city. The shadows have grown longer. Golden sunlight spills across the volcanic paving stones, warming the walls of the houses until they glow with soft shades of amber and ochre. Flower boxes hanging beneath open windows catch the afternoon breeze, their blossoms nodding gently as though greeting every passerby. You pass once more beneath the great city gate. The familiar sounds return. A merchant closes the shutters of his stall for a short rest. Somewhere nearby, a carpenter planes a length of cedar, each stroke smooth and unhurried. A pair of children chase a rolling wooden hoop down a side street, before dissolving into laughter when it tips over against a doorstep. The city seems content, not bustling, simply alive. You wander without any particular destination. That is one of the quiet pleasures of Pompeii. Most streets eventually lead somewhere familiar. You could spend an afternoon simply following whichever road seems most inviting, and never feel truly lost. Ahead, beyond a row of graceful columns, you catch sight of one of the city's oldest landmarks, the Temple of Apollo. It has stood here for generations, long before Rome's influence spread across southern Italy. Even now, despite the passing centuries, it remains one of Pompeii's most respected places of worship. As you approach, the noise of the surrounding streets fades almost naturally. Visitors lower their voices. Footsteps become slower. The broad courtyard surrounding the temple invites a different kind of movement. Not silence exactly, but quiet respect. The temple itself rises upon a stone platform, its elegant columns supporting a beautifully carved roof of terracotta tiles. Time has softened the sharp edges of the stone, giving the building a sense of quiet dignity rather than grandeur. A bronze statue of Apollo catches the afternoon sunlight. The god stands with calm confidence, bow resting lightly in one hand. Romans know Apollo as the god of sunlight, music, healing, poetry, and prophecy. His presence feels strangely appropriate beneath the warm Italian sky. You climb the shallow steps. Each one has been worn smooth by countless visitors who came before you. Generations have stood exactly where you now stand. Farmers seeking a favorable harvest, merchants hoping for prosperous trade, parents praying for healthy children, travelers asking for safe journeys. Most requests are simple, ordinary, very much like the people themselves. Near the entrance, the faint scent of burning incense drifts through the warm air. A priest moves quietly between the altar and the temple doors, arranging fresh offerings left earlier in the day. A small bowl of figs, fresh flowers, a little wine poured into a shallow bronze vessel. Nothing extravagant. Faith here is woven gently into everyday life. It does not always demand great ceremonies. Often, it lives in these small acts of gratitude. You pause near the altar. The polished stone beneath your sandals still holds the warmth of the afternoon sun. For a moment, you simply observe. A young couple quietly place a wreath of olive branches before the altar. An elderly woman touches the edge of a marble column before whispering a brief prayer. A father gently lifts his small daughter so she can see one of the painted decorations carved high above the entrance. She studies it with complete fascination. He smiles. There is something comforting about traditions passed so naturally from one generation to the next. No one rushes. No one seems eager to leave. The temple offers something difficult to describe. Not excitement, not spectacle, only stillness. Beyond the courtyard, you can hear the city continuing with its ordinary business. The distant creak of wagon wheels, a blacksmith's hammer. Laughter carried on the breeze. Yet within these columns, those sounds seem softened, almost wrapped in peaceful silence. You find a shaded place beneath the colonnade. The marble is pleasantly cool after your walk through the sun. From here you can see much of the forum stretching beyond the temple grounds. People continue moving through the square in an endless but gentle flow. Some stop to greet old friends. Others carry baskets filled with vegetables, bread, or pottery purchased during the day. A messenger walks briskly across the open space, wax tablets tucked carefully beneath his arm. Even from this distance, you can see familiar faces. Life in Pompeii has a reassuring predictability. Tomorrow, many of these same people will pass this way again. The day after that, likely the same. The Romans often speak of the favor of the gods, but perhaps the greatest blessing is simply another peaceful day. A breeze moves through the temple. The linen folds of your tunic flutter gently. Somewhere above, pigeons settle upon the roof beams before taking flight once again, their wings creating a soft rush of air that echoes briefly beneath the stone ceiling. Your eyes drift toward the horizon. Above the rooftops rises Mount Vesuvius. From here, framed between two marble columns, it almost looks like a painted landscape. Its green slopes appear peaceful beneath the afternoon sun. Thin rows of vineyards climb its lower hills. Scattered farmhouses rest among orchards. The mountain has become so familiar that hardly anyone notices it anymore. It is simply part of home. Like the sea, like the forum, like the temple itself. A small boy, perhaps no older than 8, stands beside his grandfather near the temple steps. The older man points toward Apollo's statue while quietly explaining one of the old myths. The child listens with wide eyes. Though you cannot hear every word, you recognize the gentle rhythm of the story. These legends have been told for centuries. Children hear them beside hearth fires, in marketplaces, in gardens, and here beneath the columns of the temple. History lives as much through stories as through stone. The afternoon light has begun to change. The brilliant white marble now glows with warmer shades of gold. Long shadows stretch across the courtyard, reaching slowly toward the altar. The air feels softer, cooler. Some visitors quietly begin making their way home. Others arrive, choosing this quieter hour to offer thanks before the evening meal. You rise from the cool stone bench. Before leaving, you take one final look around the peaceful sanctuary. The flicker of incense smoke, the sunlight dancing across polished marble, the familiar mountain watching over the city beyond. Everything feels wonderfully ordinary. And perhaps that is what makes this moment so precious. You descend the temple steps and return to the streets. The afternoon is giving way to evening now. Across Pompeii, kitchens are beginning to fill with the comforting aromas of fresh bread, vegetables, herbs, and slow-cooked stews. Families are making their way home after another ordinary day, and before long, you will do the same, joining them for one of the simplest and happiest rituals of Roman life, the evening meal shared beneath the warm glow of oil lamps. The streets of Pompeii begin to change as the afternoon quietly slips toward evening. The brilliant white light of midday softens into a warm golden glow that stretches across the rooftops. Long shadows reach farther with every passing moment, cooling the stone streets that only a few hours ago shimmered beneath the Mediterranean sun. The city does not suddenly become quiet. Instead, it slowly exhales. Merchants begin gathering their goods from wooden stalls. Colorful fabrics disappear into storage chests. Clay jars are stacked neatly against shop walls. Bronze lamps are polished one last time before their owners close the shutters for the night. Business has given way to home. The familiar rhythm repeats itself, just as it has every evening for countless years. You join the gentle stream of neighbors making their way through the narrowing streets. Some carry woven baskets filled with fresh vegetables purchased at the market. Others balance warm loaves of bread beneath folded cloths to keep them soft until supper. A fisherman walks carefully with 2 freshly caught sea bream hanging from a wooden pole across his shoulders, while a young girl proudly carries a small bundle of herbs almost as large as her head. Everyone seems content. There is no urgency. Tomorrow's work can wait until tomorrow. For now, families are thinking only of returning home. As you turn into your own street, the familiar scents welcome you before you even reach your doorway. Wood smoke curls gently from chimneys. Garlic sizzles in warm olive oil. Fresh herbs release their fragrance into the cooling air. Somewhere nearby, onions are slowly cooking over a small fire, their sweetness drifting across the neighborhood. It is impossible to know which family is preparing which meal. The aromas mingle together, creating a single comforting fragrance that belongs to the whole street. You pause for a moment before opening your door. Across the way, your elderly neighbor waters a row of flowering plants growing in clay pots outside her entrance. She notices you and smiles. "Beautiful evening," she says. "It certainly is." Neither of you feels the need to add anything more. Some conversations are complete in only a few words. Inside your home, the atrium has changed completely since midday. The bright square of sunlight that once illuminated the center of the room has shifted toward the western wall. Soon it will disappear altogether. The shallow pool beneath the opening in the roof reflects the evening sky, now painted in delicate shades of pale blue and gold. A few leaves float quietly upon its surface. The house feels wonderfully cool after the warmth outside. You place your purchases upon the wooden table. The evening meal will be simple. Most Roman families do not feast every night. Ordinary households find happiness in fresh ingredients prepared with care. You begin by lighting a small oil lamp. Its flame flickers uncertainly for a moment, before settling into a warm, steady glow. One lamp becomes two, then another. Soft, golden light begins to fill the room, replacing the fading daylight, little by little. The painted walls seem to come alive once again. Shadows dance gently across the ceiling. There is something deeply comforting about lamplight. It asks nothing of you except to slow down. You kneel beside the hearth. The fire you rekindled before sunrise has long since burned low, leaving behind a bed of glowing embers. Adding a few carefully chosen pieces of olive wood, you watch as the flames return almost eagerly. The dry branches crackle softly. Warmth spreads through the room. Soon a bronze cooking pot hangs above the fire. Into it go lentils that have been soaking throughout the afternoon. A handful of chopped onions, leeks, a little garlic, fresh thyme, bay leaves gathered from the garden. Finally, a generous drizzle of fragrant olive oil. The aroma begins almost immediately. Rich, earthy, comforting. While the stew simmers gently, you slice the remaining loaf of bread purchased that morning. Though no longer warm from the oven, its crust still crackles pleasantly beneath the knife. A small dish of olives sits nearby. Another holds creamy goat's cheese. There are fresh figs from the countryside, and a handful of almonds gathered during last autumn's harvest. Nothing extravagant, everything satisfying. The best meals often require the fewest ingredients. Outside, the city continues its slow transformation. The cheerful noise of the marketplace has almost disappeared. Instead, the sounds of home begin to replace it. Doors opening, families greeting one another after the day's work, children laughing in nearby courtyards. Somewhere farther down the street, someone begins playing a simple melody on a reed flute. The tune drifts gently through the evening air, before fading into the distance. It is not a performance, simply music for the pleasure of the moment. You stir the pot slowly with a long wooden spoon. Tiny bubbles rise lazily to the surface. The herbs have begun releasing their full fragrance now. Steam curls upward, carrying with it the comforting scent of a meal prepared with patience rather than haste. As the stew thickens, you remember meals shared here countless times before. Conversations about the coming harvest, stories told by grandparents, laughter over forgotten childhood adventures, plans for tomorrow's work, the ordinary moments that quietly become a lifetime. Perhaps that is what truly makes a house into a home, not the walls, not the roof, but the countless evenings spent together around a familiar table. When the meal is ready, you carry the dishes into the atrium. The last rays of sunlight still reach the open roof above, painting the evening sky in soft shades of amber, rose, and lavender. The transition between day and night happens so gently that it almost escapes notice. The cool drink balances the warmth of the stew perfectly. The first spoonful is wonderfully comforting. The lentils have become soft and creamy. The garlic is sweet rather than sharp. The olive oil gives the broth a silky richness, while the herbs add just enough fragrance to remind you of the gardens outside. Every bite feels nourishing. Every bite feels familiar. As you eat, your thoughts wander. Tomorrow will likely resemble today. The bakery will light its ovens before sunrise. The fountains will continue flowing. The forum will fill with merchants and travelers. The vineyards beyond the city will shimmer beneath another clear Italian sky. Life here follows dependable rhythms. That certainty is one of its greatest comforts. A cool breeze drifts down through the opening in the atrium roof. The first evening star has appeared overhead. Soon many more will follow. You finish the last of your meals slowly, in no particular hurry to clear the table. There is still time before sleep. Time to enjoy the quiet hours that belong only to the evening. Perhaps a short walk through the cooling streets would be pleasant. Pompeii after sunset possesses a different kind of beauty, one shaped not by the brightness of the sun, but by the gentle glow of oil lamps, the murmur of distant conversations, and the peaceful feeling that settles over a city, preparing for another ordinary night. The warmth of your evening meal lingers pleasantly as you step outside once more. The wooden door closes softly behind you, leaving the quiet comfort of your home for the equally peaceful streets beyond. The air has changed since midday. The heat carried by the afternoon sun has given way to a gentle coolness that drifts inland from the Bay of Naples. It is the kind of evening that invites a slow walk. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing demanding your attention, only another ordinary evening waiting to unfold. The street looks different beneath the lowering sun. Earlier, every wall reflected bright daylight, making the city seem almost dazzling. Now, long shadows stretch across the volcanic paving stones, softening every sharp edge. The painted houses glow in shades of honey, bronze, and pale rose as the sun slowly sinks toward the western horizon. You begin walking without any particular destination. Many others seem to have had the same idea. An elderly couple strolls together, speaking so quietly that only the occasional laugh reaches your ears. A father carries his youngest son upon his shoulders, while an older daughter skips happily beside them, carefully balancing a small wicker basket filled with fresh fruit. Two neighbors pause beneath an archway, continuing a conversation that probably began hours earlier in the forum. Nobody appears hurried. The day has already given everything it needed to give. Now comes its gentlest hour. As you pass one of Pompeii's many thermopolia, the city's version of a small tavern or food stall, warm light spills onto the street through its open doorway. The stone serving counter is lined with large clay jars set neatly into its surface. Inside them are stews, beans, lentils, vegetables, and warm wine, ready for anyone who prefers not to cook at home. A handful of customers sit upon simple wooden stools. Some have stopped for supper before returning home. Others simply enjoy talking with old friends over a cup of watered wine. Their conversations rise and fall like the gentle murmur of a stream. No one speaks loudly, no one argues. The owner greets each guest by name. He has done so for years, perhaps decades. You smile as you continue walking. A familiar scent reaches you, fresh bread again. Even this late in the day, another batch has just emerged from a nearby bakery. The baker places warm loaves upon wooden shelves to cool, while a small line of late customers patiently waits outside. One little boy presses eagerly against his mother's tunic, unable to hide his excitement as the smell fills the street. The baker notices him. With a broad grin, he tears off a small piece from a loaf that cracked imperfectly in the oven and offers it to the child. The boy's eyes brighten with delight. His mother thanks the baker warmly. Such small kindnesses rarely find their way into history, yet they are often the moments that shape a community, far more than great victories or famous speeches. Further along the street, a barber sweeps the last clippings from his doorway before lowering the wooden shutters. Across from him, a bronze worker carefully polishes tomorrow's tools before locking his workshop. Each trade has its own evening ritual, the same careful routine, repeated day after day, until the movements become almost effortless. Routine has a quiet comfort of its own. As the sky deepens into richer shades of orange and violet, the first oil lamps begin appearing outside homes. One by one, tiny flames flicker to life. At first there are only a few, then dozens. Soon the entire street glows with scattered points of warm golden light. The transformation is gradual, so gradual that you scarcely notice it happening until you suddenly realize daylight has almost disappeared. A young woman carefully shields the flame of her lamp with one hand while lighting another beside her doorway. Across the street, an older man hangs a bronze lantern from a wooden beam outside his shop before gently closing the entrance for the night. The lamps do not make the streets bright. They were never meant to. Instead, they soften the darkness, creating little islands of warmth that guide familiar feet through familiar neighborhoods. The smell of olive oil burning in the lamps mingles with the cool evening air. It is a scent every Roman knows from childhood. Comforting, familiar, home. The farther you walk, the quieter the city becomes, not because people have disappeared, rather because everyone seems to speak more softly after sunset. Laughter still drifts from open courtyards. Someone continues playing a reed flute somewhere beyond the next street. A dog barks once before settling comfortably beside its owner's doorway. High above, swallows that spent the day darting across the sky have disappeared into their nests beneath the roof tiles. Even the pigeons that crowded the forum during daylight have found places to rest among the temple columns. The city itself seems ready for sleep. You arrive at one of the public fountains you visited this morning. The bronze lion's head still pours cool water into the stone basin below. Nothing about it has changed, yet in the evening light, it somehow feels entirely different. The surface of the water reflects the glow of nearby lamps instead of the bright blue sky. Each ripple stretches the reflections into shimmering ribbons of gold. You kneel once again, cupping your hands beneath the cool stream. The water feels colder now, refreshing after the warmth that lingered throughout the day. Nearby, 2 young apprentices fill buckets to carry home before night fully arrives. One jokes that tomorrow his master will certainly invent more work than any one person could possibly finish. The other laughs. Some complaints belong to every generation. As you stand, your eyes naturally drift upward. Above the rooftops, the evening sky has become wonderfully clear. The first stars begin appearing one by one. The brightest catches your attention immediately, hanging low above the western horizon. Soon another appears, then another. Within minutes, countless tiny lights decorate the heavens. Without the bright glow of modern cities, the night sky above Pompeii is astonishingly beautiful. Every constellation shines with remarkable clarity. Children grow up learning their names from parents and grandparents. Sailors navigate by them. Farmers watch them change with the seasons. Travelers trust them to guide long journeys across unfamiliar lands. You pause for several peaceful moments simply looking upward. Somewhere beyond those stars, the gods are believed to watch over the world below. Whether they truly do is something each person decides for themselves. It is easy to understand why so many people feel connected to something greater than themselves. A cool breeze stirs once more. It carries the scent of the sea, the fragrance of flowering jasmine climbing a nearby wall, the faint aroma of extinguished hearth fires settling into glowing embers. The city has become wonderfully peaceful. From where you stand, you can just see the dark outline of Mount Vesuvius rising beyond the rooftops. Its slopes are now little more than a silhouette beneath the stars, quiet, still, as familiar as ever. Like everyone else preparing for another restful night, you give it hardly a passing thought. Instead, you turn toward home, following the warm glow of oil lamps through streets that have carried generations safely back to their families. Soon the city will sleep, and within the quiet walls of your home, another peaceful Roman evening will come to its gentle close, as stories are shared, lamps burn low, and the comforting sounds of Pompeii slowly fade into the silence of the night. By the time you reach your home, the streets of Pompeii have become wonderfully quiet. Not silent. A living city is never truly silent. Instead, the sounds have become softer, gentler, as though everyone has unconsciously agreed to lower their voices beneath the evening sky. You lift the wooden latch and step inside. Immediately, the familiar scent of warm olive wood welcomes you. The fire in the hearth has settled into glowing embers, their soft orange light dancing across the floor in slow, shifting patterns. One of the oil lamps you lit before supper still burns steadily upon its bronze stand, filling the atrium with a warm, golden glow that reaches every corner without ever becoming harsh. The house feels peaceful, safe. Outside, the city belongs to everyone. Inside these walls, it belongs only to those who call it home. You pause beside the shallow pool at the center of the atrium. The opening in the roof now frames a sky filled with stars. Their reflections shimmer gently upon the dark water below, broken only occasionally by the smallest ripple as a faint breeze drifts through the house. It is difficult to tell where the sky ends and the water begins. For a few moments, you simply stand and watch, There is no reason to hurry. Evenings are generous with time. The Romans understand something that people in many later centuries will slowly forget. Not every hour must be productive. Some hours exist simply to be enjoyed. You settle onto a wooden bench near the fire. The day's warmth still lingers in the thick plaster walls, but the gentle heat from the hearth adds another layer of comfort. Olive wood burns slowly, producing a pleasant fragrance unlike that of pine or oak. You reach for another small log, placing it carefully upon the glowing coals. For a moment, nothing happens. Then tiny blue flames appear around its edges. Soon the fire awakens once more. It crackles quietly, sending occasional sparks dancing upward before they disappear into the chimney. Fire has a curious way of holding attention. You have watched countless hearths throughout your life, yet somehow the movement of the flames never becomes ordinary. Perhaps that is why so many conversations begin beside a fire, or why stories seem richer when told by its light. We remember listening to tales here as a child, legends of brave heroes, adventures upon distant seas, the founding of Rome, the cleverness of Odysseus, the strength of Hercules, the wisdom of old philosophers whose names seemed impossibly ancient even then. The stories changed from night to night, but the feeling remained the same: warmth, safety, wonder. Tonight, the house is quiet enough that your own thoughts become companions. You think about the people you pass during the day, the baker lifting warm bread from the oven, the shepherd resting beneath the olive tree, the elderly woman gathering herbs beside the country road, each one living a life as complete and meaningful as your own. History often remembers emperors, it remembers battles, victories, triumphs, yet most lives are built from moments far smaller than those: a shared meal, a friendly greeting, a walk beneath the evening sky, a peaceful night beside the fire. Perhaps those are the moments that matter most. Outside, footsteps pass your doorway. Not many, only the occasional neighbor, returning home after visiting friends or family. Their sandals tap softly against the stone street before fading into the distance. Somewhere farther away, a dog barks twice. Another answers. Then the neighborhood settles once more. The sounds are so familiar that you scarcely notice them anymore. Every city develops its own nighttime voice. Pompeii's is gentle. You rise and move toward a small wooden shelf near the wall. Resting upon it are a few treasured possessions collected over many years. A finely painted ceramic cup purchased from a traveling merchant. A small bronze figurine inherited from your father. A polished shell gathered long ago along the shores of the Bay of Naples. None of them are particularly valuable, yet each carries a memory. Objects often become important not because of what they are, but because of where they have traveled with us. You gently dust the shelf before returning to your seat. The oil lamp burns steadily. Its flame casts delicate shadows across the painted walls, bringing the garden scenes to life once again. Birds seem ready to fly from painted branches. Flowers appear almost to sway in an invisible breeze. Roman artists have a remarkable talent for making walls feel larger than they truly are. The room seems to open onto imaginary landscapes where spring lasts forever. You pour yourself one final cup of watered wine, only a little, enough to enjoy while watching the fire. The cup feels pleasantly cool in your hands. Outside, somewhere beyond the rooftops, a nightingale begins to sing. Its clear notes drift through the quiet streets with astonishing purity. For several moments, nothing else competes with its song. Even the fire seems to crackle more softly. The Romans often believed that every place possesses its own spirit. Whether that is true or not, evenings like this make the idea feel entirely possible. The city breathes. The houses settle. The gardens whisper beneath the breeze. The stars wheel slowly overhead. Everything belongs exactly where it should. You glance once more toward the opening in the roof. The constellation of Orion has begun its slow climb above the eastern horizon. Experienced sailors know these stars well. Farmers watch them change with the seasons. Children learn their stories before they are old enough to read. The heavens are as familiar as the streets below, and just as dependable, or so they seem. Your thoughts drift toward tomorrow. There is fresh bread to buy, perhaps another visit to the forum, maybe time to help a neighbor with repairs before the next market day. Nothing unusual, nothing extraordinary. Simply another ordinary day in Pompeii. The oil lamp flickers gently as its supply begins to diminish. The quiet of the evening has deepened into something even more peaceful. You know sleep will come soon. Before it does, however, there is one last habit shared by many households throughout the city. A final walk through the home, checking each doorway, making certain the fire is safe, closing the shutters against the cool night air. Small routines repeated so often that they require almost no thought. You rise slowly, carrying the lamp with you. Its warm light follows across the mosaic floor, illuminating familiar rooms one by one. Everything is exactly as it should be. Outside, Pompeii sleeps beneath a sky scattered with countless stars, unaware that history waits quietly beyond the horizon. Tonight, however, there is only peace, only home, only another beautiful Roman night. The house has grown wonderfully still. The last of the evening chores are finished. The dishes have been washed and stacked neatly upon their shelf. The fire has settled into a steady bed of glowing embers, giving just enough warmth to keep the evening comfortable without filling the room with excessive heat. You lower yourself once more onto the wooden bench beside the atrium. Above you, the night sky stretches endlessly beyond the square opening in the roof. The stars seem brighter now. Without the light of the setting sun, the heavens reveal countless tiny points of silver that had been hidden only an hour before. A faint breeze slips through the opening, stirring the flame of the nearby oil lamp. Its light flickers gently across the painted walls before becoming steady once again. Everything feels calm, everything feels familiar. You listen, not because you are searching for anything, simply because evening invites listening. The occasional footsteps of a late traveler echo somewhere beyond the street. A dog barks once before deciding the effort is hardly worthwhile. Farther away, someone laughs softly. Then silence returns. It is the comfortable silence of a city at rest. You close your eyes for a moment. The day's memories drift gently through your thoughts. The warmth of the baths, fresh bread from the bakery, the vineyards beyond the city walls, children playing in the forum, the peaceful temple. Another ordinary day, one that seems likely to be followed by countless more. Then, almost too gently to notice, the wooden bench beneath you gives the faintest little tremble. Not enough to disturb your balance, not enough to rattle the pottery upon the shelf, only a tiny vibration, gone almost as soon as it arrives. You open your eyes. For a brief moment, you wonder whether you imagined it. Then you smile to yourself. The earth has been known to do this from time to time. It is hardly remarkable. Older neighbors often joke that Campania is like a large dog dreaming in its sleep. Every now and then it stretches without waking. After the great earthquake many years ago, everyone became more aware of these little movements. Walls had cracked. Columns had fallen. Repairs had continued for years afterward. Even now, if you look carefully while walking through Pompeii, you can still spot houses where fresh plaster covers older damage. Some temples continue to receive repairs. A few fountains have only recently been restored. Life simply carried on. It always does. Small tremors no longer surprise anyone. If anything, they have become part of living here. The ceiling passes completely. The oil lamp burns as steadily as before. Nothing has fallen. Nothing has changed. Outside, the night continues without interruption. You stand and wander toward the front doorway. Opening it quietly, you step into the cool evening air. The street is nearly empty now. Most families have retired indoors. Only a handful of lamps still burn outside neighboring houses. Their golden light pools softly upon the paving stones before fading into darkness. High above the rooftops, the stars appear even brighter than before. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a pale ribbon of mist. Without the smoke and lights of great modern cities, the night sky possesses a breathtaking clarity. Roman sailors crossing the Mediterranean trust these stars completely. Farmers measure the seasons by them. Children learn their stories before they can even write their own names. You lean lightly against the doorway. A cool breeze arrives from the direction of the sea. It carries the faint scent of salt, mixed with flowering jasmine growing somewhere nearby. The fragrance is gentle, refreshing, peaceful. Far above the rooftops, Mount Vesuvius stands quietly against the stars. Its broad outline blends almost perfectly into the darkness. You have looked at this mountain every day for as long as you can remember. Most people in Pompeii scarcely notice it anymore. Visitors admire its beauty. Farmers praise its fertile soil. Children climb its lower slopes, gathering flowers in spring. It has become part of everyday life. Like the sea, like the vineyards, like the streets themselves. As you watch, a tiny owl glides silently across the rooftops before disappearing into the darkness beyond. Some Romans believe owls bring messages. Others dismiss such ideas with a smile. Superstitions vary from household to household. You have never paid them much attention. The bird was probably searching for mice, nothing more. Nearby, another door opens. An elderly neighbor steps outside, carrying a small clay lamp. He notices you standing beneath the stars and smiles. Beautiful evening. It is. He glances briefly toward the mountain. I thought I felt the ground move a little while ago. You nod. So did I. He shrugs almost immediately. Happens often enough. It does. The conversation ends there. Neither of you appears concerned. There is simply nothing to worry about. After all, the earth has trembled before. Tomorrow the baker will still light his ovens. The forum will still fill with merchants. Children will still chase each other through the streets. Life will continue exactly as it always has. The old man wishes you a peaceful night before disappearing back inside his home. His lamp vanishes behind the wooden door. The street grows quiet once more. You remain outside a little longer, listening. The breeze moves gently through nearby cypress trees. Somewhere beyond the city walls, a shepherd's dog calls into the darkness. Crickets sing from gardens hidden behind stone walls. Everything sounds wonderfully ordinary. Eventually, you return inside. You close the door carefully. The iron latch settles into place with a familiar click. The lamp still burns beside the hearth. The embers continue glowing softly. The house has remained exactly as you left it. Whatever tiny movement passed beneath the city has already been forgotten. Tomorrow is another day, or so everyone believes. You extinguish one of the lamps, leaving only the gentle glow of the fire to illuminate the room. Its warm light dances quietly across the ceiling as you prepare for sleep, unaware that the mountain beyond the city has begun a story that no one in Pompeii can yet hear. The final lamp burns quietly beside the hearth. Its small golden flame wavers gently each time a cool breath of night air slips through the opening above the atrium. Shadows drift lazily across the painted walls, stretching and shrinking with every flicker until they almost seem alive. The house has become wonderfully still, not silent. A home is never completely silent. Wood settles with the changing temperature, producing the occasional soft creak. Somewhere in another room, a clay jug gently clicks as it cools after the warmth of the day. Beyond the walls, distant footsteps pass from time to time before fading once again into the peaceful rhythm of the night. You begin preparing for sleep. The routine is so familiar that your hands move almost without thought. One by one, you check the wooden shutters facing the street. Each is fastened securely. The cool night breeze continues to drift through the open roof of the atrium, carrying with it the faint fragrance of jasmine and rosemary from neighboring gardens. The scent is comforting. It belongs to warm summer evenings in Campania. Returning to the hearth, you use the iron poker to gently gather the glowing embers closer together. There is no need to keep a large fire burning throughout the night. The thick plaster walls have stored enough warmth from the day to keep the house comfortable until morning. You place a small piece of olive wood upon the embers, not enough to create large flames, only enough that the fire will remain alive until dawn, ready to be coaxed back into life tomorrow, just as it was this morning. The tiny flames catch slowly, orange, then blue, then steady gold. You smile. There is something reassuring about knowing tomorrow's fire has already begun. Above you, the stars continue their slow journey across the sky. Without even stepping outside, you can follow their movement through the square opening of the roof. The Romans have watched these same constellations for centuries. Some tell stories of hunters and heroes, others speak of gods placing eternal reminders in the heavens. Children memorize them almost as naturally as they learn the streets of their own neighborhood. You extinguish another lamp. Now only the hearth remains. Its warm glow reaches only a short distance into the room, leaving the corners wrapped in gentle darkness. The painted birds upon the walls slowly disappear. The garden scenes fade into shadow. Everything becomes softer, simpler. You walk quietly toward your sleeping room. The woven mattress waits exactly as you left it. The wool blanket has already begun to lose the warmth it gathered earlier, but it will not remain cool for long. You sit upon the edge of the bed for a moment. Outside, somewhere beyond the city walls, a night bird calls once. The sound echoes faintly through the darkness, before disappearing into the hills surrounding Pompeii. Then comes another sound, the steady chirping of crickets, hidden among the gardens. You have heard them every summer night for as long as you can remember. If they were absent, you would notice immediately. Their song has become part of home itself. You remove your sandals, placing them neatly beside the bed. Tomorrow morning they will be waiting exactly where you expect them to be. Small habits like this make each new day feel familiar before it has even begun. The tunic you wore throughout the day is folded carefully and placed inside the wooden chest. Nothing is simply thrown aside. Good clothing lasts many years when treated with care. A tiny moth flutters briefly around the remaining lamp before settling somewhere beyond its light. Even the insects seem slower now. The heat of the day has finally disappeared. The house feels wonderfully comfortable. The mattress gives gently beneath your weight. Above, through the opening in the roof, countless stars continue shining with remarkable clarity. No smoke obscures them, no bright city lights compete with their brilliance. The heavens appear endless. Your breathing begins to slow, the events of the day drift quietly through your thoughts. Fresh bread, the bustling forum, the warmth of the baths, the vineyards stretching beneath the afternoon sun, the peaceful temple, the evening meal, the quiet walk through lamplit streets. Nothing extraordinary happened, and perhaps that is exactly what made the day so beautiful. History often celebrates great victories, great discoveries, great disasters, yet almost every human life is built from ordinary days exactly like this one. People wake, they work, they laugh, they share meals, they greet their neighbors, they return home, they sleep. Across Pompeii, thousands of families are doing exactly the same thing at this very moment. Oil lamps are being extinguished one by one. Doors are being bolted. Children are already asleep beneath wool blankets. Parents whisper their final conversations before closing their eyes. The baker, exhausted after tending his oven since before sunrise, has long since retired. The shepherd beyond the city walls sleeps beneath the same stars. The merchant who spent the morning arranging colorful fabrics now dreams of tomorrow's customers. Even the donkeys that patiently turned the great millstones rest quietly in their stalls. An entire city breathes together, slowly, peacefully, comfortably. The silence deepens, not because fewer sounds exist, but because each one becomes farther apart. A distant dog, then nothing. A soft breeze, then stillness. A single owl calling somewhere upon the hillside. Then only crickets. Far away, almost too faint to hear, comes another tiny vibration. Not a sound exactly, more a feeling, the faintest suggestion that the earth has shifted somewhere beneath the countryside. Your bed barely notices. Neither do you. Perhaps if you had been standing, you might have felt it beneath your feet. Perhaps not. Small tremors have become almost ordinary since the great earthquake years ago. Most people hardly mention them anymore. Tonight is no different. The city continues sleeping peacefully. Beyond the rooftops, Mount Vesuvius remains a dark silhouette against the stars. Still, silent, unmoving. It watches over Pompeii exactly as it has every night for generations. No smoke rises from its summit. No glow lights the darkness. Nothing about the mountain suggests that tomorrow will be any different from today. The breeze softens. The crickets continue their patient song. Your eyes grow heavier. Sleep arrives quietly, without announcement, just as it does every evening. Outside, beneath one of the clearest night skies in the Roman world, Pompeii rests in complete peace, unaware that this ordinary night will soon become one of the most remembered nights in human history. But for now, there is only stillness, only home, only sleep. Morning arrives quietly. Long before the streets begin to fill with voices or the first bakery opens its shutters, the darkness slowly begins to loosen its hold on Pompeii. The stars that shone so brilliantly through the night now appear softer, fading one by one, as the eastern horizon takes on the faintest wash of pale blue. You wake naturally. There is no alarm to disturb your rest, no bell demanding that you rise, only the quiet rhythm of your own body, accustomed to greeting the day before the sun itself. For a few peaceful moments, you remain beneath your wool blanket, listening. The city is not yet awake, or rather, only a handful of people have begun their day. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster calls. His voice echoes through the quiet streets, before another answers from farther away. Soon a third joins them. The familiar chorus spreads gently across the rooftops, greeting another summer morning exactly as it greeted yesterday and the day before that. You open your eyes. The room is still wrapped in gentle shadow. Only a faint ribbon of light slips through the opening above the atrium, revealing the outlines of familiar furniture, the wooden chest, the small table, the oil lamp that burned late into the evening. The painted walls now appear muted, waiting for daylight to restore their colors. You sit slowly upon the edge of the bed. The cool mosaic floor greets your feet once again. It feels pleasantly refreshing after the warmth beneath the blankets. Stretching your shoulders, you take a slow breath. The air carries the scent of yesterday's olive wood, now reduced to cool gray ash within the hearth. Somewhere nearby, jasmine continues to bloom, its fragrance drifting softly through the open roof. It is a scent that belongs only to these early hours, before the heat of the day awakens the stronger aromas of bread, herbs, and bustling streets. You make your way quietly into the atrium. Above you, the last few stars still cling to the fading night. The square opening in the roof frames the sky perfectly, almost like a painting that changes a little every morning. A tiny breeze stirs the surface of the shallow pool below, breaking the reflections into gentle ripples. The water catches the growing light, turning silver for a moment before becoming clear once again. You kneel beside the hearth. The fire has done exactly what you hoped. Beneath the blanket of ash, a few tiny embers still glow faintly, patiently waiting. With practiced hands, you arrange several small pieces of dry olive wood across them. Then you lean forward and breathe gently. Once, twice. For a moment nothing happens. Then a single orange thread of flame appears beneath the kindling. Another follows. Soon the quiet crackle of burning wood fills the room once more. The familiar morning ritual never grows old. There is quiet satisfaction in knowing that today's warmth has been born from yesterday's fire. As the flames strengthen, the room slowly comes alive. The painted birds upon the walls seem ready to sing again. Golden borders brighten, deep red panels regain their richness. The bronze cooking pot hanging above the hearth catches the first flickers of light, reflecting tiny flashes across the ceiling. You warm your hands beside the fire, not because the morning is particularly cold. Southern Italy is generous even before sunrise, but there is comfort in beginning the day this way. Outside, another sound joins the roosters, the slow creak of a wooden cart. Somewhere beyond your street, a baker has already begun carrying sacks of grain toward his millstones. Bread waits for no sunrise. If the ovens are to fill the city with warm loaves by breakfast, the work must begin while most people still dream. You can almost smell it already. Soon the fragrance of baking bread will drift through every neighborhood. The scent has become as dependable as the rising sun itself. You pour a little fresh water into a bronze basin and wash the last traces of sleep from your face. The water is cool, clear, refreshing. It leaves tiny droplets upon your skin that quickly disappear in the growing warmth of the morning. As you dress, your movements are unhurried. The same linen tunic, the same leather belt, the same sandals, waiting faithfully beside the doorway. Simple things, well cared for, built to last. Romans take pride in maintaining what they own. A carefully mended tunic is worth more than an expensive garment neglected through carelessness. When you finish dressing, you pause once more beside the household shrine. The little painted figures of the Lares stand exactly where they always have, silent guardians of the home. You bow your head briefly, not because you seek anything extraordinary, only another peaceful day. Good health, steady work, safe journeys for those traveling the roads. Enough bread for every table. Sometimes the simplest hopes are the greatest blessings. The first true rays of sunlight finally appear above the eastern horizon. They slip across the rooftops of Pompeii, touching the highest tiles before slowly descending the walls. The city begins to glow. You unlatch the front door. The cool morning air greets you immediately. It carries the fresh scent of damp stone and distant vineyards still heavy with dew. The street before your home is nearly empty. Only a few early risers have ventured outside. An elderly woman sweeps yesterday's dust from her doorway with slow, careful strokes. Across the street, a young apprentice adjusts the wooden shutters of his master's workshop. Farther along, a water carrier balances two empty buckets across his shoulders as he makes his way toward the nearest public fountain. Everyone moves quietly, respectfully, as though unwilling to disturb the peaceful beginning of the day. You step onto the smooth volcanic paving stones. Tiny drops of moisture sparkle where the night's cool air has settled upon the stone. The city feels wonderfully fresh, clean, renewed. You glance toward the eastern sky. The sun has now cleared the horizon completely, bathing Pompeii in soft golden light. Beyond the rooftops, Mount Vesuvius stands exactly where it always has. Its broad green slopes catch the first sunlight of the morning. Vineyards shimmer beneath a blanket of dew. Scattered farmhouses begin releasing thin ribbons of chimney smoke into the still air. The mountain appears peaceful, almost beautiful. You find yourself admiring it for a moment before continuing your walk. Like every morning before it, today promises familiar routines, fresh bread, friendly conversations, the steady music of fountains. Nothing about this morning feels unusual. Nothing hints that history is quietly approaching with the sunrise. For now, Pompeii simply awakens to another beautiful day, and you step forward to greet it with the same quiet gratitude that has welcomed every morning before. The city seems to awaken all at once. Only a few moments ago, the streets belonged to the earliest workers and the chorus of roosters greeting the dawn. Now, with the sun climbing steadily above the eastern hills, Pompeii begins to fill with the familiar rhythm of another ordinary day. You walk at an easy pace along the volcanic stone street. The morning light transforms everything it touches. The pale plaster walls of neighboring homes glow softly beneath the golden sun. Painted doorways seem brighter than they did only moments ago, while climbing vines spilling over courtyard walls catch tiny drops of dew that sparkle like scattered pieces of glass. The air remains pleasantly cool. It will not stay this way for long. By midday, the summer sun will warm every stone beneath your sandals, encouraging people to seek the shade of colonnades, gardens, and fountains. For now, however, the morning belongs to walkers, to bakers, to merchants, to children beginning another day. Ahead, the familiar bakery has already drawn a small gathering. The heavy wooden doors stand open, allowing the warmth of the ovens to spill into the street. The scent reaches you immediately. Fresh bread, toasted grain, a hint of smoke from olive wood burning steadily inside the great brick ovens. Few smells are as comforting. The baker himself stands near the entrance, brushing flour from his forearms while speaking cheerfully with several regular customers. He recognizes you at once. You're early today. So are you, he laughs. I've been awake since the stars were still out. You glance toward the glowing ovens. I believe it. He lifts a newly baked loaf from a wooden paddle. Steam curls lazily into the cool morning air. The crust has turned a deep golden brown, marked with neat cuts dividing it into equal sections. He hands it to you with practiced ease. It is almost too warm to hold. You thank him before stepping aside to let another customer approach. Behind you, the great millstones continue turning, round and round, driven patiently by a pair of donkeys walking the same gentle circle they followed yesterday, and the day before that. The steady grinding has become part of the city's heartbeat. You tear away a small piece of bread. The crust crackles softly. Inside, the crumb is light and warm, carrying the simple sweetness of freshly milled wheat. It needs nothing else. Not butter, not honey, simply bread. Sometimes the simplest foods are the most satisfying. Leaving the bakery, you continue toward the nearest public fountain. Already a line has begun to form. Women balance empty amphorae upon their hips. Children wait beside wooden buckets nearly half their own height. An elderly man patiently fills several clay jars before loading them onto a small handcart. The fountain sings its endless song. Crystal clear water pours continuously from the bronze lion's mouth into the polished stone basin below. Splash, splash, splash. The sound has echoed through this neighborhood for years, perhaps generations. You cup your hands beneath the cool stream. The water tastes wonderfully fresh. Nearby, two boys compete to see who can fill a bucket first. Their excitement lasts only until one loses his grip. Water splashes across the pavement. The boys stare for a heartbeat, then burst into laughter. Even the adults nearby cannot hide their smiles. One of the women shakes her head with affectionate amusement. "Better to spill water than tears," she says. Everyone seems to agree. You continue walking. The streets grow busier with each passing minute. A mule pulls a cart stacked high with clay amphorae, destined for the harbor. The driver clicks his tongue gently, encouraging the patient animal forward. Nearby, a vegetable seller arranges neat rows of onions, leeks, cabbages, and beans beneath a woven canopy. Everything is placed carefully, the brightest produce at the front, the larger baskets toward the back. Presentation matters almost as much as the vegetables themselves. Across the street, a fish merchant spreads crushed ice brought from the mountains around the morning's catch. Silver fish glisten beneath the growing sunlight. Customers stop to examine them closely before making their choices. Trade has begun in earnest. The forum will soon be full. As you walk, familiar greetings accompany nearly every corner. A potter raises a hand from his workshop. A blacksmith nods while arranging newly finished tools outside his door. The herb seller you visited yesterday is already tying fresh bundles of rosemary and thyme with thin strands of woven grass. It is remarkable how many faces become familiar when life moves mostly on foot. People do not simply pass one another. They know one another. They notice when someone has been absent. They celebrate births. They mourn losses. A city is more than buildings. It is memory shared among thousands of ordinary people. The warm loaf beneath your arm fills the air with its comforting aroma. You cannot resist breaking off another small piece. As you eat, your eyes drift toward Mount Vesuvius. Morning sunlight now illuminates its entire western slope. The vineyards glow a rich green. Farmhouses nestle quietly among orchards. Thin threads of chimney smoke rise peacefully into the cloudless sky. The mountain appears almost gentle. Its broad shape has become so familiar that most people rarely give it more than a passing glance. A farmer standing nearby follows your gaze. "A fine day," he says. "It certainly is. Perfect weather for the vineyards." You nod in agreement. No one imagines otherwise. The fertile soil has rewarded generations of farmers. Why should today be any different? A tiny vibration passes beneath your feet, so slight that at first you wonder if someone nearby has simply closed a heavy door. A hanging bronze lamp outside a nearby shop sways almost imperceptibly before becoming still again. The mule pauses, flicks one ear, then continues walking. Several people glance around for only a moment. One elderly merchant shrugs, another little tremor. His companion chuckles. The earth likes reminding us it's still there. The conversation ends almost immediately. No one runs, no one appears alarmed. A woman continues choosing onions. The baker returns to his ovens. Children resume their game beside the fountain. Life moves forward exactly as it always has. These small tremors have become part of living in Campania. Like summer heat, like sea breezes, like winter rains. You scarcely think about it another moment. Instead, your attention returns to the city around you. The laughter, the smell of bread, the steady splash of the fountain, the cheerful greetings exchanged between neighbors. Pompeii has fully awakened. Its streets are alive with ordinary happiness. And as you make your way toward the Forum once more, surrounded by familiar faces beginning another beautiful morning, there is no reason to believe this day will be remembered any differently from the thousands that came before it. The Forum is busier than ever. By now, the morning has settled comfortably into its familiar rhythm. Merchants call softly to passing customers, craftsmen continue their work with practiced hands, and the steady murmur of hundreds of conversations blends into a single peaceful sound that seems to belong to the city itself. You wander without any particular destination. There is no great urgency today, only the simple pleasure of walking through streets you know by heart. The broad paving stones beneath your sandals have been worn smooth by countless generations. Every polished surface tells the story of thousands of ordinary footsteps, farmers bringing produce to market, children racing one another through the streets, soldiers returning home, travelers arriving from distant ports. Now your own footsteps join theirs. The sun has climbed higher into the sky, but a pleasant breeze still drifts in from the Bay of Naples, carrying the scent of salt water mixed with flowering herbs from nearby gardens. It is the kind of morning that encourages people to linger outdoors. Near one corner of the forum, a musician sits upon a low stone bench, quietly playing a simple tune upon a reed flute. The melody rises gently above the surrounding conversations. Several children pause to listen. One little girl begins turning in slow circles, pretending to dance. Her younger brother tries to imitate her before stumbling onto the paving stones, laughing more at himself than anyone else. Their mother smiles without interrupting her conversation with a nearby cloth merchant. No one seems hurried. Life unfolds at its own comfortable pace. You continue walking beneath a shaded colonnade where several scribes have already begun their work. Sheets of fresh papyrus lie neatly arranged upon wooden tables. A customer dictates a letter destined for relatives in another city. The scribe writes with remarkable speed, his reed pen gliding effortlessly across the page. Few people can write with such confidence. For many families, men like these give shape to words that might otherwise remain only spoken thoughts. You pause for a moment, watching the careful movements of his hand. There is something almost peaceful about the rhythm. Dip the pen, write a line, pause, begin again. Nearby, an elderly philosopher has gathered a small audience beneath the shade of a marble portico. His hands move expressively as he speaks about virtue, fortune, and the changing nature of human life. Some listeners nod thoughtfully. Others simply enjoy the opportunity to rest in the shade while hearing familiar ideas discussed once more. Whether everyone agrees hardly seems to matter. Conversation itself is part of Roman life. As you leave the gathering, a sudden flutter of wings catches your attention. A flock of pigeons rises from the forum all at once. Dozens of gray wings fill the air. The birds circle above the rooftops before settling again on the tiles of a nearby temple. You watch them disappear. Perhaps someone startled them, a passing cart, a barking dog, or perhaps they simply decided to fly. No one gives it much thought. Life continues exactly as before. The breeze freshens slightly. It arrives from the direction of Mount Vesuvius, cool enough to offer welcome relief from the growing warmth of the day. You notice that it carries an unfamiliar scent. Not unpleasant, not especially strong, only different. A faint trace of warm stone and dry earth. It disappears almost as quickly as it arrived. You find yourself breathing deeply once more, but the breeze has already shifted. Now it smells only of vineyards and distant olive groves. Perhaps your imagination played a small trick. The seasons often change the character of the wind. Nothing more. At the edge of the forum, a dog lies comfortably beneath the shadow of a column. He has chosen one of the coolest places in the square. His ears twitch now and then as people walk past. For several minutes, he appears perfectly content. Then, quite unexpectedly, he lifts his head. His eyes turn toward Mount Vesuvius. He remains perfectly still, watching, listening. After a few quiet moments, he stands, stretches lazily, circles once upon the warm stone, and lies down again with a satisfied sigh. Whatever captured his attention has already passed. You smile to yourself. Animals often behave in ways people struggle to understand. Sometimes they hear sounds too distant for human ears. Sometimes they simply decide another patch of shade looks more comfortable. Either explanation seems equally likely. The city carries on. Blacksmiths continue striking glowing iron upon their anvils. The sharp ringing echoes through neighboring streets with reassuring regularity. A woman bargains cheerfully over the price of fresh figs. A pair of sailors recently arrived from the harbor stop to admire brightly painted pottery displayed outside a workshop. An elderly couple sits together beside a fountain, sharing bread and olives while watching the crowds pass by. Nothing about the morning feels unusual. The ordinary routines of Pompeii continue weaving together like threads in a well-made cloth. Strong, familiar, enduring. Then comes another gentle tremor. This one lasts only the briefest moment, a ripple beneath your feet, barely enough to disturb the dust resting upon a nearby windowsill. One of the hanging bronze lamps beneath the colonnade swings ever so slightly. The philosopher pauses in the middle of a sentence. Several listeners glance toward one another. Someone chuckles softly. The earth is restless again. It has been restless for years, another replies. A few knowing smiles pass through the group. The philosopher simply resumes speaking, as though nothing had happened. Within moments, everyone has returned to their conversations. The tremor has already become another small story to mention over supper, if anyone remembers it at all. You continue your slow walk toward the edge of the forum. From here, the rooftops of Pompeii stretch away in every direction. Beyond them rise the green slopes of Mount Vesuvius, peaceful beneath the late morning sun. Its vineyards shimmer softly in the light. Farm workers move like tiny figures between long, orderly rows of vines. Thin trails of smoke rise from distant cottages where meals are already being prepared. It is an image of remarkable tranquility, beautiful enough that visitors often pause to admire it. You do the same. For a long moment, you simply stand and look. The mountain has always been there, older than the city, older than the roads, older than the temples. Generations have planted vineyards upon its slopes, gathered fruit from its orchards, and built homes in the shadow of its fertile hills. It has become such a familiar part of life that few people ever stop to wonder about its distant past. Instead, they see only what lies before them, a mountain that nourishes the land and watches quietly over the Bay of Naples. You turn away at last, leaving the view behind. The forum remains filled with cheerful voices. The fountains continue their endless song. Fresh bread still perfumes the warm morning air. Around you, Pompeii lives another ordinary day with quiet confidence, never imagining that the mountain it has trusted for generations is keeping a silence that will not last forever. The city seems brighter now. The sun has climbed high enough to fill every street with warm golden light, washing across white plaster walls and red-tiled roofs until Pompeii appears almost to glow. You leave the forum behind and wander without any particular destination. For once, there is nowhere you need to be. No errand waiting to be completed. No appointment calling you elsewhere. Only the quiet pleasure of walking through a city that has become as familiar as your own heartbeat. The paving stones beneath your sandals are warm now. The cool freshness of dawn has given way to the gentle embrace of a Mediterranean morning. Above, swallows dart effortlessly between rooftops, twisting and turning through the bright blue sky with astonishing speed. Their cheerful calls echo through the narrow streets before disappearing into the open squares beyond. A gentle breeze slips between the buildings. It carries the mingled scents that belong only to Pompeii. Fresh bread, olive oil, rosemary, warm stone, ripening grapes from vineyards beyond the city walls, the faint salt of the nearby sea. Every city possesses its own fragrance. This one is rich with life. You pass a doorway where an elderly woman carefully waters flowers growing in clay pots beside her entrance. Bright blossoms spill over their edges, adding splashes of red, yellow, and violet against the pale walls. She notices your glance and smiles proudly. They're happier this year. They certainly look it. She laughs softly. The mountain has been generous. Her eyes drift for a moment toward Vesuvius, rising peacefully above the rooftops. Soil like this grows everything. You follow her gaze. The mountain stands quietly beneath the clear summer sky. Its slopes are a patchwork of vineyards, orchards, and cultivated fields, stretching upward toward distant forests. Nothing about its appearance suggests danger. If anything, it seems protective, almost comforting. You continue onward. The neighborhood grows livelier with every passing street. Children chase one another around the bases of stone columns, inventing games that seem endlessly entertaining despite requiring little more than imagination. A little boy proudly carries a wooden sword nearly as long as his arm. Another pretends to defend an invisible fortress while his friends laugh loudly at every exaggerated victory. Nearby, several girls gather beneath a fig tree, tossing small polished stones in careful patterns while quietly singing a tune their mothers probably learned from their own mothers years before. The songs of childhood rarely change. Neither do the games. Watching them, you cannot help but smile. There is something timeless about children at play. Across centuries, their laughter always sounds the same. Further along the street, a carpenter works beneath the shade of a canvas awning. Curly ribbons of fresh pine fall around his sandals as his plane glides smoothly across a wooden board. Each stroke releases the sweet scent of newly cut timber. He pauses only long enough to examine his work before beginning another careful pass. Nothing is rushed. Quality demands patience. The steady rhythm of his tools becomes another quiet piece of the city's morning music. Nearby, a pair of laundresses spread freshly washed tunics across ropes stretched between two courtyard walls. The white linen catches the sunlight and billows gently in the breeze like the sails of distant ships. One woman pauses to smooth a wrinkle before fastening another clothespin. Simple work, done well, done with care. You wander into a quieter residential street where the noise of the forum fades into the distance. Here, fountains murmur softly in private gardens hidden behind painted walls. Birds flutter among cypress trees. A cat stretches lazily upon a sunlit windowsill before closing its eyes once more, perfectly content to spend the morning watching the world without participating in it. Families greet neighbors from open doorways. An old man sits repairing a fishing net despite living miles from the shore. Habit has become tradition. His fingers move confidently without requiring his full attention. As you pass, he offers a friendly nod. Fine weather? The finest. He smiles. We've been fortunate. Fortunate indeed. The harvest has been good, trade has flourished, the harbor remains busy. Travelers continue arriving from every corner of the Roman world. Pompeii is prosperous, confident, comfortable. It feels as though this peaceful rhythm could continue forever. You find yourself drawn toward one final overlook, where the streets open enough to reveal the Bay of Naples shimmering beneath the late morning sun. Merchant ships appear as tiny white shapes crossing the blue water. Some sail toward distant ports, carrying wine and olive oil. Others return with spices, marble, glass, and stories gathered from lands beyond the horizon. The sea has always connected Pompeii to the wider world. Looking out across the water, it is easy to imagine that nothing truly changes. Ships come, ships go. Seasons pass. Children become parents. Parents become grandparents. The city endures. Behind you, a church bell does not ring. This is centuries before such sounds will fill Italian towns. Instead, what marks the passing hours is something gentler. The steady splash of fountains, the calls of merchants, the laughter of children, the occasional bray of a patient donkey, the ringing of a blacksmith's hammer. These are the sounds by which Pompeii measures its days. You linger for a while beneath the shade of a stone archway. The breeze shifts again, carrying cool air from the direction of the mountain. It brushes lightly across your face before continuing toward the sea. Almost absent-mindedly, you look toward Vesuvius once more. Its slopes remain peaceful beneath the bright sky. Vineyards shimmer in the sunlight. Farmers continue their work among the vines. Nothing appears different. Nothing seems unusual. If someone were to ask whether today feels special, you would probably answer no. It feels comfortably ordinary. And perhaps that is why this moment matters so deeply. History often remembers cities at the instant they change forever. Yet the truest measure of a place is found not in its final hour, but in the countless ordinary mornings that came before, in the smell of warm bread drifting through narrow streets, in neighbors exchanging friendly greetings, in children laughing beside fountains, in gardens carefully tended, in meals shared beneath painted ceilings, in quiet walks beneath a summer sky. These are the moments that build a life. These are the moments people rarely think to preserve. You take one last slow walk through the familiar streets. The baker waves as another tray of bread disappears into his oven. The flower seller rearranges fresh blossoms beneath her awning. The blacksmith lifts his hammer once more. A mother calls her children home for the midday meal. Water continues flowing endlessly from the lion-headed fountains. Sunlight dances across polished mosaics. The city breathes with quiet confidence. Above it all, Mount Vesuvius stands silently beneath the brilliant blue sky. You pause for one final look, not because anything seems wrong, simply because it is beautiful. Then you turn away and continue walking. Around you, Pompeii carries on exactly as it always has. For its people, tomorrow has not yet become history. It is simply another beautiful day waiting to be lived. And as the warm Mediterranean sun shines gently over streets filled with ordinary lives, you allow yourself to slow your steps, breathe deeply, and carry with you the quiet peace of a city whose greatest treasure was never its buildings or its wealth, but the simple, everyday moments shared by the people who called it home.